Everybody been watching games, man. Let's talk about this March Madness, man. A couple questions. Why is there so many upsets? Who gonna get bounced next? And surprise teams left. Let's start with you, man. Uh, why do you think there been so many upsets?
That depends on if you see them as upsets.
I
I
mean,
mean,
I,
at this point, I don't necessarily see them as upset. I mean, I guess if you're looking at numbers, like
yeah, I mean based on
a
ranks and
16 lost to a one, but I mean, this has been the most parity in years in college
okay.
basketball. So I mean, it's not that surprising. When you got Duke, who's lost, not Duke, but Purdue, who's lost to a double-digit seed the last 3 years, that's not an upset. That's a trend.
That's just a trend.
Yeah, like
Facts,
Right.
facts though,
they're,
facts.
they're just going to lose to. So I mean, 5-12 happens every year. Like, is that really an upset? I mean, at this point, the college basketball is not the like next step to the NBA like it used to be. So I mean, these kids don't have to go to the big basketball program. So they ain't got to go to Duke. They ain't got to go to North Carolina. They
Mm,
ain't got to go to Kansas to actually make it to the league. So I mean, you're not seeing that same high level for those teams that you're used to seeing at the top. And then, I mean, with your mid majors, there's not a lot of stuff that's changed from them. They typically have people who are playing longer, playing together longer, so they have more cohesiveness. So it almost seems like the top is coming down and the bottom is moving up a little bit, and you're getting a little bit more parity. So I don't see them as upsets. I just see it as basketball. I mean, you're not seeing a ton of senior guard, junior guard led teams that are like going to go super deep into the tournament. The only older gentleman I can think of off the top of my head right now is the unfortunate one who threw the turnover in the Furman
Mm,
game.
mm.
Um,
mm.
but yeah, I mean, when it comes to again your typical bigger schools, I don't see a ton of senior or older leadership. So I mean, you've got young people playing against people who are a little bit more experienced because they've been playing together, a little bit more cohesion. That just means to me that there's more parity. It's just a little bit more even. So I don't see them as upsets.
Okay, okay. What about you, Justin? What you think, man? You
Uh,
think it's a lot of upsets, or you think this just a trend, as Ike was saying, with just a bunch of young guys leading teams, and you know?
yeah. I mean, honestly, I don't. I just think I agree with what Ike said. I mean, I just think at the end of the day, this was bound to happen when you started this one and done stuff. So at some point, a lot of that stuff was just gonna catch up, and you'll see teams. Because I mean, you got to think one. I'll be honest with you. I think that it's a flaw anyway in your ranking systems. I was talking about this the other day, and I said I'm not knocking it, but like you take some of these teams and they could start the year off hot and all that good stuff, but a lot of these teams are one injury away from not even making the tournament if that person wasn't on the team. So you
Right.
see some of these teams they suffer an injury, but they were so good they get a five or they go you're going into the tournament number two seed fives. Well, they're not really that team anymore. So you know what I
Mm,
mean. So some of that plays into effect. But I agree. I just think you got other teams like you got a Miami who has juniors and seniors. You know what I mean. You got teams now where you're just seeing a little bit more parity, and I just think that's the nature of it. So I don't necessarily see it as upsets. The reality is I had Purdue losing in the second round anyway, so I wouldn't. I mean, I wasn't surprised anyway. I wasn't expecting much from them.
right, right, right. What about you, Jared? Last but not least, man. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with Ike and Justin. I feel like with to Ike's point, the parody. I mean, no, you really don't know who's who. And then like on the podcast we shot with Crossroads, we were talking about it. I
Mm-hmm.
specifically remember saying nobody's good,
Yep.
and this is
Yep.
before I even knew that my guy was a Purdue fan. So I wasn't trying to like come at him for his team, but the
I
games
was.
that they lost as the number one ranked team in the country, it was just like, really?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I think that's it. I think the transfer portal is kind of hurting it. Because like for example, the kid from Miami, he was from Kansas State. Nigel Pack, the kid from here.
Hmm.
So that probably could have boosted Miami from not making the tournament to being a 5 seed to playing
Yep.
in the Sweet 16. Just
To
that
being
move there.
impact,
Yep.
yeah.
So
Yep.
the one and dones, like you said, Justin, I think that's affecting it. I don't want to. I'm trying to stay away from saying hurting it because I don't want to sound like a hater. Although, yeah,
Right.
I,
Yep.
I'll say
that's another like yeah. I don't want to go
Yeah,
down
yeah.
that rabbit
No, no.
hole.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
But I think it's affecting it. The transfer portal. I think the parity. You just don't really know who's who. Um, Shout out to Princeton still being in it though. I
Yeah.
guess you could call
Yep.
them the surprise team, but like y'all both said, can you really even call it a surprise? Guess how many
No.
games of Princeton I've watched this year? Zero. So I don't know what the hell they're capable of. I
Yep.
couldn't
Right,
tell you
right.
one of the guys' names on the team. So I think that factors into it all.
Okay, so again, like, all right, based on where we are now in the tournament, like, who do y'all see as a big name that may get bounced next? Like, if y'all had to pick one out of the ones that's left, which ain't many. I mean, you got Alabama really
Houston.
and Houston, yeah. Like,
Yeah,
you think Houston? Who you think,
yeah.
Justin? Who you
I
got?
mean, I guess it depends on what you are. You talking about the one seeds that are left, or just
Yeah, I guess
anybody
some of the
who?
top seeds versus some of the lower seeds. I guess I should say,
I
like,
mean,
because that's how we can go on this seed. Based on how they seeded. We may not
yeah,
think that's the talent number, but that may be just how they going.
yeah. I mean, I would probably say the team that's most likely is probably going to be Houston. But I mean, obviously, with UCLA and Gonzaga matching up, one of them going to be
Mm.
gone. You know what I mean? That somebody's going to be gone who's a 2 or 3 seed there. You know what I mean? So,
Right, right.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think because to me, and I guess I'll say this too. I just think that Bama's the most well-rounded team I've seen so far in the tournament in terms of as a collective.
It's
You
a
know,
collective.
they
Okay.
don't need their star to be a star every game in order to win. So
Hmm.
Okay.
And
Ike, what
I
about?
would.
Oh, go ahead, Jeff. I mean,
I was
Jared.
gonna say I was gonna say Houston. I mean, I don't know the status of Marcus Sasser, their point guard.
that's the other.
He
Yep,
he went
yep.
out in the American Conference Championship. So that kind of hurt him. Well, it hurt him a lot. So we'll see if he can come back. I haven't seen any updates on his status. So I definitely feel like Houston is in the most danger as far as one seeds. But I mean, anything can happen if I
Oh
haven't even
yeah.
looked back at my bracket not one time because I'm in the
I'm,
second game when Virginia goes out. It's just like, all right, well, better luck next year.
well, really, what I think what did it for me was on that. Like, I think it was Brandon when we did the episode with Crossroads. He
Mm.
kind of sold me on Kansas, which is why I actually
Mm.
picked Kansas. I think to go to like the Elite Eight or something like that. And then when they got bounced, I'm like, well,
Were
guess we
you
were wrong
expecting
on
the
that one.
coach to
So
be out though? Like,
no, no, but I
so
mean,
you get a pass
again,
for that because
yeah, yeah, yeah. But again, too, like even in the matchups, because if I'm mistaken, Texas and Xavier play too. That's another 2-3 matchup. So you're gonna lose
Mhm.
another high seed because they play each other this round. So
Yep, that is a 2-3.
Yeah, that's bound to happen. I
Mhm.
mean, well, of course, somebody's gonna be gone. What
right,
about you, Ike? What you think?
I mean, same Houston as I had Houston losing the last game. I think I still got three of
really?
my final four actually.
It
Yeah,
was
I
close. They only
yeah
beat
No, no, no.
I
I'm
had
not.
UCLA
them.
by
Yeah.
one.
Mm,
I definitely had to lose in the last game,
okay.
and picked that in my bracket prior to. So uh, I also am going to admit a bit of my bias because I was at IU when Kelvin Sampson was making three-way calls. It kind of fucked us up. So there's a little bit of hate there. I'm not gonna lie, but the same thing that Jared said with one of their best players being out, like it, and in a tournament you've got to have your best players, especially a guard
Yep.
Yep.
who
Yep.
is going to be able to control the tempo, know when to push, know when not to push, know who to get involved,
Yep.
and without that, it's really really difficult.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, I mean that's who I have, and again, part of it's Hayden, but also the majority of it is because they're missing one of their best players.
Yeah, I've always think college basketball has kind of been centered around uh, guard play for the most part here lately, just because you gotta have somebody who can run offense, who can tell what's going on, who can see the floor and make plays. It's really about that, getting the ball to the right people in college. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
That's really what it's about. Not so much in the pros, but in college. Surprise team still left. I guess we talked about it. That's Jerry. You said Princeton. I mean, who would have
Yep.
thought? Who else y'all got out there? Who you got? Ike, as a surprise team for you that's still in it.
I mean, I guess I can't say a surprise thing because I don't consider any
Yeah,
of these
yeah,
games upsets. So,
yeah.
like to me, none of this is surprising. It's just, I mean, and to kind of go back to what Jared and Justin were saying, like I called one and done killing college basketball when they introduced it, and I'm going to say it's hurting. like
Mm.
because again, your best players either, especially at that time, like they would either go to the whatever school was the biggest, like Calipari would get them all. They would be
Yep.
there for a
Mm-hmm.
year, and they would go to the league. Or Duke would get a couple of them. They'd be there for a year, and then they go to the league. Then you introduce, well, now we got NIL and these other options in which people don't even have to go to college as the
Man,
next step to the league. So
talk about it.
and then like uh, look, Bates, sorry, is what in somewhere in Detroit. I always forget what school he's at. He's
Eastern
gonna,
Michigan.
yeah,
Yep.
he's gonna get to the league and what they won like 5 or 6 games or something this year.
Damn, that's it.
They didn't win that many. I saw at one point they were like 4-12 or something like that, but they were
Jeez.
close to having a winning season. But he's gonna get to the league, and I mean, yeah, he went to Memphis first and transferred out because he had whatever issue he had with Penny. But players like that used to have to go to big schools
Mm-hmm. To
to
get
get to the
noticed.
league. Now, I mean, and some of the best
Wow.
guards in the league now didn't go to huge schools. I mean, Steph went to Davidson, Dame went to what Weber State.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So like you don't when you ain't got to make that jump to a huge D1 school and you can still get to where you want to get to. All you got to do is show that you can ball. One and done plus that makes it to where you don't have a ton of differences in teams anymore in college.
Can I say this though?
Go ahead.
To kind of piggyback off what you're saying. See, I even take it a step further, and I said the problem is it goes back to like Dame's comments and Jerry. You know, I'm talking about on the podcast with JJ Redick, which is the culture of basketball today. The kids are just giving too much too soon. That's why you see
Mm-hmm.
what happens to Imani Bates happen because he's been getting told since he was in what 7th grade, hey, you're the number 1 draft pick in the NBA draft when it comes around. You know, when
Mm.
you got a guy like Mikey Williams getting a $3 million Puma deal, shoe deal, and you're still in high school, there's just it's so much given to these kids. They don't have the need to work like it used to. You used to have to grind, and you don't have to
Yeah.
do that anymore because now they getting social media famous, and they get money just based on that. So I just think a lot of that is what's hurting the game as well, especially like college basketball. And I'm just curious, and I know this is off topic. Y'all's thoughts on this because this came up because I work with a couple guys who are Purdue fans, and I said this. Side note: Eastern Michigan was 8-23. So you're 100% right, Ike. Good
Terrible.
lord, they're terrible. Oh
That,
my
I'm
goodness.
looking at that too. That's
Yeah, like
wild.
horrible. But I said this. I said, really, in the reality, a kid like Imani Bates needed to end up at a Purdue. I said, you can't leave from a Memphis and go to Eastern Michigan and yeah, you average 20 or whatever you average, but I can't look at that the same. You needed to go to a Purdue where you could show me that you can compete in the Big Ten, where
Yep.
you're still going to play against those
Yeah.
big schools. Maybe Memphis was a bad look or situation, okay, but you can't leave Memphis and go to Eastern Michigan and then want me to say you're a first round draft pick, my man. I'm sorry, it don't work like that. If to me,
Unfortunately, that's
it does.
how
You're
it's gonna
right.
work
Yep,
out for him.
yep. But
Yeah,
no,
it will.
no. So, sorry to go on that little slight
No,
rant,
no,
but it
no.
was
But
just
it's viable.
yeah,
It's,
man.
Yeah,
it's
8 and 23 is the worst. That's
That's
terrible.
terrible. That's
And I
terrible.
was looking at his game log. Like one game, he went 2 for 17.
Yep,
And granted, he's playing
he's
in the
value.
MAC, so it's not 2 for 17 against Gonzaga or
Yeah,
Texas.
exactly.
I mean, that's 2 for 17 against I can't remember who it was, but like
Northern Illinois and
that's
Ohio State or
Toledo.
terrible.
something.
Yeah, like
right, right,
Niagara.
right.
Yeah.
You played
Now,
Niagara. You know what I mean? Like,
granted, he's had some good games. I mean, he had 43 one game, lost though, which
yeah,
is
exactly.
tragic. He had 30 against Michigan, lost. 36 against South Carolina, lost. I mean, these teams aren't even ranked. South Carolina was terrible this year.
Yep.
43 against Toledo and lost. 35 against Ball State and lost. 20. Yeah, this is terrible.
Terrible.
So yeah, y'all absolutely right with that for sure.
Yeah, and I just think, like you said, nowadays you don't have to go to a big school because everybody you can find anybody on the internet. You can find their tape on the internet. Like you can find, like you said, highlights like what
Highlight culture.
Austin was talking. Austin
Yep.
Rivers was talking about.
Yep.
Like You can find the highlights. You can find what any kid in the country is doing, and you don't have to go visit them. It can be these small towns like that. These recruits wouldn't even want to go to, or these NBA scouts wouldn't even really go to unless it was
Right.
a Larry Bird or somebody like that on that level. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Who
Hey,
literally take the national reigns by dominating through college basketball, not only as a player but as a team. You know, pulling his team along too. And
right.
now, like you said, you could be fucking 8-9 and be the best on your team and throw your name in the draft and you mid first round or something crazy. You know what I'm saying? I just think that's just wild, man. Like, just wild.
Right. Before we get off college basketball, can I ask something real quick?
Absolutely.
So, have y'all heard about Antoine Davis from Detroit Mercy? Second leading scorer,
Yes.
Yes.
and he's complaining because he didn't get an
He said he got
opportunity.
cheated.
Yeah, y'all were 14 and 19.
They weren't a good team.
14 and 19.
And,
And then you're
and he,
chasing a record that, a guy, did it in 3 years. He did it in 5. I would just gracefully take that second. And, 14 and 19, you don't deserve to play anything once your schedule is over. I'm sorry.
exactly.
So for the
And
fact
there
that he's
was
not, because even watching, I was watching the championship of the college basketball invitational. I don't even know if guys may not have heard about it. EKU, Eastern Kentucky was playing. They were playing UNC Charlotte, and both those teams were like 23 and 13. So to be 14 and 19 and be complaining because you didn't get,
I don't want to hear it.
yeah, an extra game. That's crazy. I think that kind of ties into the culture. It kind of ties into what Austin Rivers was talking about. It kind of ties
Yep.
into what Dame was saying. Like
Yep.
the
Yep.
the product and the focus is just different. It's just different. I don't even really know how to really break that down any further, but it's
yeah,
just different.
Nah,
to complain about that and have an extra year,
Yeah, exactly.
bro.
Yeah, you got a fifth
Like,
that
year.
part.
Yeah, and you guys suck. I mean, sorry, you guys stink. You
you
don't
should have
deserve to
won
play
more
anymore
games,
basketball.
fam. It's cool.
Exactly. You
Fans
just
wanna
gotta
see anymore basketball.
you gotta win more, man. Like
Right.
it's enough getting the scoring and whatever, but you just gotta win more.
Got to.
It's not equal. It's not equal to winning. So
No.
you're never gonna get any
No.
recognition if it doesn't equal winning. If what you're doing
Right.
does not equal winning, it's just gonna be hard for people to get behind you. You know
They
what I
need,
mean?
they need to go ahead and open up that rule so that these guys can go to the NBA. And I feel like if you go to college and you accept the scholarship, you should have to give a commitment. 2 years, we could
I
discuss
agree.
3, but I feel like that'll make the product better. And then overall, all college basketball will just improve. The fans will like it. If you go to college and you accept the scholarship, you should have to have some commitment. That's all I'm saying. But that ain't really
I've
got
actually
Uh,
I've actually
That makes
second that.
sense.
Yep, because I actually said I think the one sport that has it right is baseball.
Yep.
I
Yep.
think baseball has it
Make
right.
them commit early, even at high school.
Yep.
Yeah,
Like
well,
a
you
senior
can.
in
But
high
here's the
school.
thing: if you're good enough, you can go to the majors.
Yep.
But if you're not, 2 years.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You so it's.
But you can still be under contract with their AA or
Right,
AAA team.
right.
You know what I mean? And still be
Yep.
getting paid, still be
Yep.
productive, still building your skill.
Yep.
Like
Yep. Yeah, I'm with you though, Jerry. I think even like what Ike said earlier, I just think if you want a better experience with college basketball and to bring some of that back, you got to get away from the one and done. I
Yeah.
never was a fan of them taking away allowing players to come out of high school anyway. I think that was
Mhm.
wrong, and we know why they did that. Let's just be real. Uh, but I also think that implementing 2 years. But I also think, and this is my opinion, I also think college football needs to move from 3 to 2. Like I think they need to
I can
reduce
see
it by
that
one
too.
year as well. So
I'm cool with that. Yeah, I would
yeah,
definitely sign off on that for sure.
yep. So that's it.
yeah.
I just want passion, love and attraction, baby, look at that shit. Going outside, I just like passion. Say I'm classy, ready for the madness. If you catch me, I just want passion, love and attraction, baby, look at that shit. Phone charge on its last light. Same clothes I'm from last night. Still lit like it's last night. Young living in the fast life. Young. Smoke cloud from the ash pipe. Catch air from the half pipe. I need a centerfold from the shows with the mansion. Chandelier dancing, counting a phantom, yeah. Been had hella franks, man, it's ballpark figures. Might be in the field, but I came from the trenches. You can tell it's my time, look at better squint. I do like the charm on my wrist, let me flip. Want me pay the way, I'm the wave, I'm authentic. Sitting courtside, got a sprain, nigga, I run the gang for the gang. Nothing but a thing when I sing. Young Usain, I sprinting, getting fresh prints. Counting a blessing on blessing on blessing. They call me the reverend, y'all nigga play too much.